So very good evening everyone, a very good evening, hope I am audible and visible to all. Just write in the comment section below, write down in the chat box if I am audible and visible to all. A very good evening to all dear students. This is Dr. Ankit Goyal, your psychiatry faculty at PrepLadder. Now in this video, this is a special video, not related with psychiatry per se as a subject, but in this video I am going to discuss a very important topic. Now many times, students who are preparing for different MCQ based exam, they come and tell us, sir, I am preparing for an MCQ based exam, but I get stressed when I am giving GTs, या फिर when I am solving MCQs, giving mock test, and eventually we see that this anxiety is also then subsequently reflected in the exam day. So if you are a student who is preparing for NEET PG, INI-CET, FMGE or some of the other competitive exams, this video is for you. In this video, what we are going to do, we are going to discuss some important coping strategy for test related stress. Now what I am going to do in the initial 10 to 15 minutes, I am going to talk about some important relevant points of this topic, and in the end we will take up individual queries, any queries you have related with your preparation, related to the anxiety or stress you feel while giving these tests. So let's begin this video, and before starting this topic, a very important message from my side. It's very important to remember that your health, your health, including your mental health, is much more important than any of these exams. So it's very important that you prioritize yourself. Now with this, let's talk about some of the important headings which I'm going to cover in this video. First and foremost, we are going to talk about what is stress, what are the important sources of stress, क्या sources हैं during our preparation that causes anxiety in our preparation. Then I'll talk about some important strategies. Now these are scientifically backed strategies. Many times some of these strategies we also use in therapy as well. So first I'll talk about academic coping strategies, or what we call as problem focused approach. Now in problem focused approach, basically what we do is we use these strategies when something can be done regarding the situation. Now I am sure you would feel anxiety in two situations. Now one situation is where you can do something about the situation, you can modify the situation, and sometimes there are situations which are not in your control. So these problem focused strategies you will see will be helpful in those situations, especially wherein you can change certain things in the environment, in the situation, which can help to decrease anxiety. And of course we'll talk about emotional focused approach, wherein the situation may not be under your control. You will say, sir, I cannot change the situation, but sometimes there are certain strategies which we can use during those situations to decrease our anxiety. And of course we'll also talk about some important lifestyle hacks. In fact, as a psychiatrist, often we talk about these lifestyle hacks. Many times you'll see that even small changes in your day-to-day lifestyle you can do to decrease or to overcome the anxiety. And of course in the end I'll also talk about some important hacks and tips to use, which you can use in the exam day. So in exam sometimes there is anxiety solving MCQ, so we'll talk about those situations as well. So let's start with what is stress. Now please understand, stress is a normal phenomena. It's a phenomena of a body. Whenever there is any change of situation around, the body reacts. So stress before the exam, please understand, is normal. So very important to understand this. It just shows that you're caring about the outcome, you're caring about the process. But please understand this. Is stress bad or is stress good? Please remember, stress can be good. When we talk about this Yerkes-Dodson law, it states that some degree of stress, in fact, is important. As you can see on the x-axis, jaise stress is increasing, you will see some degree of stress increases our performance. Many times it happens, when the exam day is coming, many of us feel that we are able to remember things better, we are able to study more topics which we are not able to. So some degree of stress is in fact useful. So in fact Heinz Heil has divided stress into eustress and distress. So eustress is, some degree of stress is necessary or is important, it increases our performance. But what if the stress becomes too much? अगर बहुत ज़्यादा stress हो जाता है, it becomes overwhelming, eventually you will see it may decrease our performance. So it's very important to understand this, that unmanageable stress can lead to poor focus. Many times students say, sir, I'm not able to concentrate, I'm not able to focus. But when we look carefully, many times we see that they are stressed out because of the exam, or they feel that they are blanked out during the exam, or there is panic in the exam hall. So when the anxiety is too much, that is overwhelming, and that can subsequently decrease our performance. So it's very important to understand. So the reminder is that we are not saying that let's eliminate stress. Of course it's very difficult when you say I'll eliminate stress from my life. No, it's stress is something which is inevitable, isn't it? Stress may occur because of small such situation. It is how we cope with stress. So let's understand how to channel this stress and utilize this so that we can improve upon our performance. So let me now talk about the sources of stress for aspirant who is preparing for these medical entrance exam. In fact, if any of these sources you feel that you have, then you can write down in the chat box. In fact, those students who will be watching this video later on, I would urge that also you mention in the chat box any of these stresses you feel is hampering your preparation during the exam. Now first is vast syllabus and limited time. Many times students come and say, sir, there are 19 subjects, there are so many videos, we have notes and we have to revise them multiple times. So there is a vast sea of information, of syllabus, and we have limited time. So sometimes such thoughts or thinking like this may also create anxiety or create stress. Also comparing your scores. Many times I've seen that students compare their GT scores with their peers, and more commonly I've seen that they compare with their previous scores as well. So many times students say, sir, I was giving GT में score ठीक आ रहा था, but eventually I saw कि ना dip आ रहा है, मैंने GTs देना बंद कर दिया, I stopped giving GTs. Again, because of this stress, many times we see that students may decrease giving tests, solving MCQs, and that eventually may hamper the performance. Next is fear of forgetting or blanking out in the exam. So many times students say, especially when you start revising, so what if I forget what I am revising or what I am reading? So this is also one of the fears we see that students may face. Now one again common fear which the students face is that we always try to think like this exam is going to decide my career. We try to give over emphasis or over exaggerate one exam. So please remember, one exam is not going to define you. So it's very important to understand and not take too much of pressure. Of course you're aiming for an exam, so that goal is there, but don't overemphasize or give too much of importance to that result. In fact, if you see Sachin Tendulkar, a famous cricketer, in fact one of the best in the world, now we know when we see his stats, they are amazing. But when you see these stats, nearly in 329 of his test innings, you will see that there were 14 innings in which he did not score any run, and in fact there are nearly 100 and above innings when he scored less than 50. But now retrospectively when we see his entire career, it is an amazing career. So that's why it's important to understand we all are giving so many exams, and you'll see doctors who are performing so well in their practice right now, they'll also tell you that we've given many of these exams, some exams went well, some exams did not went so well. So one exam is not going to define you, is not going to define your life. So it's very important, and let's not take too much of stress of that pressure. So these were some important sources which we have discussed. Now let's remember one thing. Many times students say, sir, I feel that I am taking more stress. Other people, other students around me, my peers, they don't have any stress. Please remember, we've been talking to toppers who have got good rank, who have scored really well. Even they admit that they also had stress, they also had their moments of down in the preparation. But what is the one thing that changes their course from the other students who did not perform so well? How they managed it. So it's always important to manage it, and once you are able to start managing it in a better way, you'll see your performance in these tests will also improve. So let's talk about first and very important strategy, that is the problem focused approach. In fact, some of these strategies we also use in therapy when we are dealing with patients having anxiety. So let's apply some of those important information we know in this as well. Now first is, as we are discussing, students say there is so vast sea of syllabus. So let's chunk down the syllabus, let's break it into daily achievable tasks. Very important. Again, a mountain climber, he wants to climb Mount Everest and is only thinking about the top. He may not be able to climb. It's very important to have a good plan, have strategy at various steps. So it's very important to break down into achievable tasks. nowadays you are seeing in cricket, in one day international cricket, so many teams are scoring 400 plus scores, but काफ़ी सारी teams हैं जो उसको chase भी कर लेती हैं. How they are able to chase? Because they are not thinking about the target, they are taking one ball at a time. So I always say this to my students, that take one day at a time. Try to give your best during that one day. In fact, even don't overthink about yesterday. Just focus on today, and you will see gradually you will be able to learn better, revise better, and eventually that will be reflected in the exam day. So try to break down the task into daily achievable goals. It's very important that it should be achievable. Many times students say that, sir, I planned to read psychiatry today, or I've planned to read obs and gynae today. So please remember, you should write down what are the specific goals you're going to do in a day. That is measurable, and that is also relatively achievable. Relatively achievable होना चाहिए, नहीं तो अगर we are making far too far or too big of goals, eventually क्या होगा, वो achieve नहीं होंगे, and that again may lead to anxiety. So it's very important to do this, and of course initially there may be some difficulty, but with trial and error you will be able to make good, measurable, achievable goals. Also very important is simulate exam condition. देखो, अगर किसी क्रिकेटर को, विराट कोहली को अगर सेंचुरी मारनी है इन द रियल मैच, ही हैज़ टू डू अ लॉट ऑफ नेट प्रैक्टिस. नो, दिस इज़ वन थिंग वी ऑफन मिस. So many times students are focusing too much on theory, they don't give GTs, they don't give these mock tests. So it's very important to give these GTs in a time bound, in a exam like setting, so that you can desensitize the stress. In fact, in therapy also we use desensitization. Anybody is having anxiety to a specific situation, हम क्या करते हैं, gradually graded manner में उसको उस situation से expose करते हैं. Gradually we see, because of habituation, the person is able to adapt to that situation. So very important to give yourself repeatedly such situation. Exam जैसी situation अपने आप को देना ज़रूरी है. So we also have so many mock tests, we have champions exam. Students again and again vouch for this, that now when I've given so many GTs, so many mock tests, तो जो actual exam है ना, वो भी मुझे एक GT की तरह लगता है. It appears like a GT. I'm able to handle the anxiety in a much better way during the actual exam. So very important, but please give regular GTs, mock test, very important. Now next, one strategy is, sometimes when students are analyzing their performance, they don't just analyze, वो over analyze करते हैं. So many times, student not getting good marks in the GT, in the mock test, or not able to solve some MCQs, they start thinking, array, I'm not going well in my preparation, I'm failing in my preparation. So let's not over analyze, focus on why I was wrong. It's very important. जब भी आप GT दे रहे हो, जब भी आप mock test दे रहे हो, या जब भी आप subject wise MCQs को solve कर रहे हो, and you're not able to solve those MCQs, always see कि where I went wrong. Rather than thinking 5 MCQs I did, सारे गलत थे, and let's not solve MCQs, that will not be of much use. देखो कहाँ पे हम गलत गए. Was it some silly mistake? Was it that I read the question in a wrong manner? Was it that my theory was not strong? In fact, use this as a feedback. Maybe my theory was not right, let's improve upon the theory, let's go back to the same topic. In fact, you will see, eventually when you start doing this, similar topics ke jab question next time you will face, you will be able to face them in a much better way. So let's try to analyze, let's not personalize, the scores or the result which we get in the MCQ. So it's very important, please remember this. Also revision. Revision is the key, very important. Many times, students have read the theory well, but they don't revise properly. So please remember, revision is the key. So many students would say that, it was not just by reading once I cleared the exam. I had to revise it multiple times. In fact, the basic concept of revision is what? We're trying to keep things from the short-term memory to the long-term memory. I'm sure many of us experience this. आपने experience किया होगा in your prof exams कि एक question आया and you remember that it is written on this side or in this page of Harrison, on this box answer is given, but answer क्या है I don't remember, because things were in your short term memory but you cannot put them in your long term memory. Now how is it possible? Again, just fantasizing कि book को pillow के नीचे रख देंगे and everything you will remember, that will not happen. We wish ऐसा हो जाए but ऐसा होता नहीं है. How it will be possible? It will be possible by revision. So revision is the key. आप जितनी बार revise करोगे, you will see you will be able to handle the questions in a much better way. But remember, कभी-कभी when you start revising, the first revision may appear very difficult. Many times students say, सर जब मैं पहली बार फिर से अपने notes पढ़ता हूँ तो लगता है क्या ये मैंने ही लिखा है? Are these written by me? This will happen in the initial few days, but gradually when you will gain momentum, you will see that you will be able to retain much better. In fact, many times students say, sir, my instinct was that this is the answer. And many times you'll see that it is because you have read it so well, even if awarenessly you're not able to remember, your instincts are telling you the right answer. It's very important to revise. In fact, there is one message which I always give to my students, कि जो भी आप पूरे दिन में पढ़ो, so if you are in this preparation phase, whatever you read every day, try to spend 15-20 minutes, if you have more, at least half an hour, to revise important points of the day. In your mind, just try to recap what all important points, topics you had read, and you will see eventually you will be able to remember things in a much better way. So it's very important to use some of these problem focused approach so that we can get over the anxiety. Now let's talk about certain situations which are not in your control. Unfortunately, so many times we have seen recently that the exams get postponed, the dates may change, and that may create anxiety. Now those are the situations often you will see that you don't have much control over. So in those situations, problem focused approach may not be that useful. वहाँ पे हम use कर सकते हैं emotional based approach. So you can use these approaches ताकि ऐसे situations को हम handle कर सकें जो situations per se are not in my control. And one key strategy is reframing. So very important, many times we see that there is the same situation. आपने observe किया होगा एक same situation है, but some of your friends may react in a different manner. For example, there is exam coming, so some friends may react like this, oh my god, there is exam, but some friends may react in a very different manner. It's just an exam, so chill. Situation is same for all, but the reaction is different. In fact, we have seen and it has been proven that कोई भी situation में जब हमारा reaction होता है, it is not the situation which is causing the reaction, it is our interpretation of that situation. So very important to change the way you are interpreting a stressor. So let's try to interpret a threatful situation in a non-threatening manner. For example, some students who faced this postponement of exam, many students lost important days thinking, why this is happening, what we do. While some students use this strategy, they said, it is not just for me, सिर्फ मेरे लिए नहीं है, it is for all. Some of the students thought, in fact, exam से कुछ दिन पहले तक I was thinking कि ये topics रह गए, I've got extra time, now I can revise even, better, in a better manner, I can even revise those topics. So very important is to, reinterpret the situation and reinterpret in a non-threatening manner so that anxiety reduces. Okay. One more very important proven, technique, scientifically backed technique to decrease anxiety is positive self-talk. So many times we have seen that जो exam day पे there is overwhelming anxiety. Many times it is because during the preparation we have a lot of negative talks, we have a lot of self doubts. Please remember, it is okay, it is normal to have such self doubts. So please try to replace those self doubts with positive self talk. So let's replace, what if I fail to, I'm prepared, I can attempt smartly, I can give my best, I'll try to give my best in the exam. So try to have positive affirmations or positive self talks, and they have been proven that these positive self talks are really helpful when we talk about anxiety. So try to have these positive self talks with yourself so that you're able to manage anxiety during the preparation. Another is detachment from the outcome. Again, I understand it's more easier to say than to implement, to be detached from the outcome, but it's very important to focus on the process. And a daily study per test per focus हमें ज़्यादा करना है rather than just thinking about that D-day, about that exam day. In fact, even in Gita it says, कर्म कर, फल की इच्छा मत कर. So of course, I'm not saying that don't think about it, but don't overthink. Focus more on your current day. Focus on your study, focus on your test, and eventually you will see that you will be able to do better and you will be able to manage that exam in a much better way. Now this again is a very important point, peer circle check. Many times we see that we may be surrounded by certain people who are giving negative suggestion and who are doing things which are in fact not helping me in my preparation. So it's always important to have a peer group which is positive, which is supporting each other. Many times I've seen that student is having a good day and suddenly the peer group is demotivating the person, telling the person, let's go and enjoy, and eventually that day turned out to be a not so good day in study. Of course, there should be certain breaks, you should take breaks, but have a peer group which is also inclined towards the same goal. Help each other grow. See, if you're jealous with anybody's score, it will not be of any use. So it's very important to focus on yourself and have a peer group that help each other. You help them, they help you, and eventually we see that that entire group gets selected, gets a good rank. So try to have people around you who spread positivity. You know, mind has a very simple principle. You give positive things, positivity will grow. You give negative things, negativity will grow. So try to have, you know, positive talks with these friends, you know, family members. Get in touch with them regularly so that you are able to manage your anxiety well. So these were some important emotional based approach which we discussed. Now let's discuss some important life hacks, you know, which helps us control stress. Now these are certain very basic things. I'm sure, you know, they would look very basic, but very important. In fact, even when we are talking to patients, we are, you know, talking to patients for therapy, you know, these are some important lifestyle hacks which we discuss, and eventually you're seeing that they are very useful. First and foremost, sleep hygiene. You know, I cannot emphasize, you know, a lot. It is too important. So much important to have a good sleep hygiene. Now I'll tell you some tips to have good sleep hygiene. You know, first is try to have a fixed schedule of sleep. You know, sleep at a fixed time, wake up at a fixed time. Try to have a fixed schedule. If, you know, if possible, try to sleep in the night time. You know, if you are studying more in the night time, but you know, before the exam, you know, few weeks before the exam, try to get into the circadian rhythm, you know, because you have to give exam in the daytime. So it's very important to have a good sleep hygiene. You know, try to do certain things which improve your sleep. You know, for example, try to have some you know, form of exercise every day, which I'll discuss, very important. Try to sleep, you know, when you're sleeping, try to wind up the day 1 hour before the sleep time. You know, many times students say, sir, I try to sleep at 12 o'clock, 11 o'clock, but I'm not able to sleep. But when you ask, what were you doing immediately before that? They were saying that I'm studying or I'm scrolling the social media. It's very important to wind up the day at least 1 hour before the sleep time, so that your mind is now cleaned to sleeping, that it needs sleep now, the mind is relaxed. So very important to have good sleep hygiene. Now movement breaks, very important. You know, often we have a sedentary lifestyle, but studies have shown that some degree of movement every day is very important. It is like a stress buster. You know, endorphins are released. So try to have, you know, at least few minutes every day, you know, some physical activity like walking or stretching, or you know, maybe light exercise. Some of you who like to do yoga, anything which is suiting you. One should do some degree of movement every day, and that again we will see that eventually decreases stress. Also, sometimes you can use certain breathing techniques, you know, deep breathing. Sometimes you feel that you are feeling stressed out about the exam, you can just have, you know, few moments of deep breathing. You know, sometimes we can also use the box breathing technique. Now what is this box breathing technique? Now you trace the sides of the box. So when you are tracing one side, let us say, so you are counting till 4 and you are taking a deep breath in. So you're inhaling, then for the next 4 counts in the next side when you're tracing, you are pausing, and then for the next 4 counts you are exhaling, and again for the next 4 count you are pausing. So you can do it few times and you will see this technique may help to decrease anxiety. So breathing exercises, breathing technique can also be used to decrease the anxiety. Now also very important is digital detox. Many times we have seen that, you know, students are there on social media, and you start scrolling for a few minutes and eventually you see that 1 hour has gone, and subsequently that entire day may go wasted. So very important to limit your social media. Try to fix, you know, if you are using, try to fix 10-15 minutes particular day, particular time of the day, you fix that this is the time I'm going to use social media, so that you're not wasting the time. Also, you know, in fact we have talked about this overuse of phone in one of the videos. You can watch that if you're facing problems in handling the phone or you're having problems in managing social media. Now let's also talk about, finally let's discuss how to cope with exam day stress. So let me just give you some tips. Many times we see कि एग्ज़ाम डे पे भी एंजाइटी हो जाती है, यू फील स्ट्रेस्ड. सो लेट मी जस्ट डिस्कस सम इम्पॉर्टेंट टिप्स टू हैंडल एंजाइटी ड्यूरिंग दैट टाइम. So first 5 minutes again are very important. Take deep breathing, stay calm. Many times what happens, students face that difficult questions may come in the initial phase. So one has to be really calm, because that initial few minutes may spoil the entire exam. So don't think too negative, just take one question at a time and start calmly, and eventually you will see things will be fine. So there will be so many questions, so many anchor questions. In fact, you will see overall so many questions you know the answer. Some students may get those questions in the later part of the exam. So wait for those questions as well and try to take one question at a time. Don't analyze too much during the exam as well. You know, nowadays we are having time bound exam, you have blocks. So once one block is done, don't now try to think about that block, that is gone now. Focus on the current question which is in hand. Also, don't get stuck at one question. Sometimes there is a tough question and we spend too much time, and that time which is wasted, that may spoil some of the other questions. You may not be able to attend some of the other questions. So it's very important to see if you're not able to get a question right, then go to the next question. Don't get stuck at one question for a long time. Also, if sometimes it may happen that the panic may hit, you may feel anxious, just try to reset it, close your eyes, take 3 deep breaths, and then again restart with the next question, and say that let me just solve the remaining questions which are there in my hand. So try to use some of these strategies and you will see that many times you will be able to manage the stress. Now let me also discuss about MCQs. So eventually you are solving MCQs, and many times it happens that MCQs may appear like this, isn't it? You will say, sir, sare answers are appearing right, all the answers appear to be right. So let me just give you some important hacks, tips to solve MCQs. Many times you will see, it's not that you should know the answer just by reading the question. You have been given 4 options. You have to get the answer from those 4 options. So it's very important to look for the keywords. I often say to the students, especially when the question is too long, try to look for the keyword. In psychiatry, for example, duration is a keyword. I change the duration, diagnosis may change from schizophrenia to acute psychosis. Sometimes symptoms, delusions, hallucination, feeling of impending doom, ये हैं कुछ important keywords. So try to see what are the keywords that will eventually help you solve the question. Always read the last line very carefully. Now it's very important, sometimes the question may appear like a psychiatric question, but eventually they may ask you a neuroanatomical structure. So it's very important to read in the last line what have been asked in the question. Okay. Read the question carefully. Often students say, sir, I have marked all the question correctly, but when they come back, they realize, arey, question tha all are true except. So sometimes we miss these terms. Why? Because we have not practiced solving MCQs. So very important to practice solving MCQs, and eventually you will see, you will be able to manage these questions well. But read all the questions carefully before marking. Many times it happens that you have read one question, there is one answer in your mind, and that is given in the first option. We may not read the other options carefully and we may mark the answer and go on the next question. But examiner has given you 4 options. Let's give respect to all these 4 options and let's at least read them carefully. Because sometimes you will see the all options may be correct in a way, but in MCQs you have to choose a better answer. So better answer may be there in the 4th option. So very important. Now also in image based questions, sometimes I see that student may spend a lot of time in these images, especially if you have read some of the images, for example, a CT scan or an MRI, you have just revised and a question comes, you are very happy, but sometimes we waste a lot of time in those images. So what you can do is, first you can read the options and then you can see the image. So that will save time. Maybe the options are related with liver, let us say. So you may have to focus on that area in the image. So these are some tips to solve MCQs, again some hacks that can decrease the anxiety when you are facing some difficult question. Now with this again I would like to sum up that stress is like a stethoscope. It's useful if handled right, but becomes overwhelming if if it is tangled. Now also remember, the goal is not to make stress zero. Again, it is very difficult. The goal is to have optimal stress, utilize some of these strategies so that we can manage stress. And very important, again, one very important message from my side is you are much more important. Prioritize your health, including your mental health, and you'll see eventually everything will happen on their own course and you will be able to achieve good in your life. And again, a small challenge, next mock test, next GT when you are giving or you are practicing MCQ, try to use some of these stress handling techniques and let me know, come back to this video and let me know which strategy helped you the most. So these were some important points which we have discussed. Now you can ask your queries, any queries which you have. Yes, very much possible. I've seen, yes, students from getting ranks in thousands to getting 2-digit, 3-digit rank in the upcoming INI-CET, very much possible. So have a good plan, try to focus on the important areas, do PYQs and focus on the previous year topics, and you will see a lot of the topics are being repeated. Yes, it is definitely possible. A lot of students in fact have done this in the past, and there is again no doubt that you can also not do. Yes, you can do. Again, sleep problem. One of the important things we've discussed is sleep hygiene, very important. Try to have a fixed, schedule. It's not that one day you are sleeping at 12, another day you are sleeping at 2. Try to have a fixed time of sleeping and getting up. Try not to, do everything on bed in the daytime. This also you can use a technique like what happens, we read on bed, we eat on bed, we talk on the phone on bed. So try to do all those activities at other place आप रात को सिर्फ सोने के लिए आ रहे हो बेड पे, because when you are doing this, the mind will know that I am now on the bed, it's sleep time. So you can use some of these strategies. Try to have some regular exercise in the daytime. Again, that will also be useful in the sleep. So yes, you can use some of these strategies. Yes, on the exam day, try to have a good sleep before. Try to at least have a good sleep. Few hours of sleep is very important before the exam. So before the exam day, have a good sleep. Also, don't go empty stomach in the exam. Try to eat something in the breakfast and be relaxed, calm down. Take one question at a time during that exam day. In fact, when you're giving GTs, give them as if I'm giving the actual exam, so that you are habituated. So that now when the actual exam comes, you know how to handle that exam. So that also you can do. Sometimes it happens. So pre-exam day, very important. When you're giving GTs, mock tests, now think of them as a main exam, and eventually you will see that will be reflected in your exam day. Any other queries, you can just write down. Also, any of those academic queries related to the exam stress, you can always come back to this video, write down in the comment section, and we'll answer the question. Again, you know, these are the two lines which I always say in all my sessions, in all my classes. In fact, they have a hidden message of how to handle stress. Now, I always say keep smiling. You know, smiling will not change the situation, but it will change the way you are, you know, anticipating or handling the situation. So I always say keep a smile. You know, even if the day is not going well, keep a smile. If you're not getting any situation, you know, see yourself in the mirror, maybe smile a few times. That will again help you to decrease stress. So it's very important to keep a smile when you're preparing. You know, see, you should read seriously, but बहुत serious होके नहीं पढ़ना. Seriously पढ़ना है, but serious होके नहीं पढ़ना. So keep a smile, and always I say keep moving forward. Take one day at a time. Let's not think too much away, and let's not think too much far of the exam day. Let's now focus just on one day, and you'll see eventually you'll be able to do much better in the exam. So these were some important points. So these two lines, you know, I always say they have a hidden message to decrease stress, you know, decrease some of the anxiety. Right. So if you get sleepy, again, try that you're not, you know, watching those videos or studying on bed. You know, maybe when you're falling sleepy, get up, wash your face, maybe walk for some time, and again come back. And eventually you'll see that with time you'll be able to handle that point. Like, so what should be included? See, in the initial part of your preparation, when you are, you know, reading theory plays a very important role, but I would still suggest when you are reading theory, try to practice MCQ during that time, because ultimately you will see when you're practicing MCQ, that is also improving your theory. Because sometimes when you face an MCQ and you're in a doubt, you'll come back to your notes and see that which is the first step or where I am going wrong. So that will eventually help you improve the theory as well. So it's very important to do some MCQs. Of course, when you are in the revision phase, then you need to increase the number of MCQs, try to give more of GTs so that you get into that rhythm of the exam mode. So try to balance it out. Always do MCQs, at least few MCQs every day, you know, 30, 40, if possible 50 MCQs even when you are reading the theory. And once you are revising, then the MCQ number can increase to 100, 150 depending on what stage of revision you are. Right? Yeah, you will be getting update about that. Right. So I think we will stop today. Again, all the very best to all dear students who are preparing for various entrance exam. And again, you know, I would like to say keep smiling, keep moving forward. Thank you. May God bless you all.